This podcast contains content that is graphic in nature and mature language that may be unsuitable for children or young listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
This particular episode contains multiple and recurring themes of rape and sexual assault. Further listener discretion is advised.
From 1997 to the mid-2000s, bodies of men aging from 16 to 46 began appearing in ditches and near cane fields and bayous in the southern Louisiana state. They all had the same cause of death. They were asphyxiated by strangulation. They all had similar backgrounds, but not much else in common. This story today is to bring further attention to the unassuming outcasts among us. Because in this case, this killer got away with killing almost 24 men in nearly a decade, being dubbed Louisiana's most gruesome serial killer. And at one point, before his capture, became the FBI's most wanted serial killer at the time. Come on with us as we try to tread through the murkiest parts of the bayou on today's episode of CenLAw. Welcome to episode 26 of CenLAw. I'm Kellye.
And I'm Kyler.
And we are continuing on our serial killer extravaganza. I honestly...
Also known as the Serial Series. Because she failed to
capitalize?
Capitalize. I was trying to think, capitulate.
Honestly, though, when I started, I didn't think it was going to be this many. I really didn't. Like, the laundry list... And I keep finding more, and there's still some that I've got to cut this. We're gonna skip back, and we're gonna come back to the serial killers because I've had at least 3 different suggestions that I've already got episodes written for. Because Miss Lenora, you know who you are, and I love you. You're my true crime soulmate. But
thanks, boo.
You're killing me, Smalls. And then the other email suggests. Maker who wishes to remain anonymous.
Wow, that was a lot. The other unknown. The other
ghostwriter. No,
I know. I like that one. I like that.
Point being, we're gonna do one more serial killer after this one because I already had that one written.
Don't believe a bitch.
And then after that, we're gonna go jump around because I've got.
We still have to do our Hall of Fame series too.
Yeah, well, and then our out of town.
Probably be about a week. But
I'm telling you, we got upwards between 75, at least 75, up to 75 episodes right now that I could do. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, because we're on 26 now, I have at least 50 other cases.
Shit, we do one a week. That's more than a year.
It's literally just as fast as I can do them. Today, we are actually going down to Homa. Spell it. Do you know how to spell it?
I'm going with Homa.
Nope. It's got a U in there because they're dumb. But no, honestly, no, that's not the reason. So...
Yeah, but isn't it?
No, it's not, actually. The native...
At least it's not EAUX.
The native tribe that was indigenous to the Homa area, tribe that was living there at the time, Homa was their word for red. And their actual emblem for their tribe was a crawfish.
All right.
So...
I'm here for that.
Homa is the parish seat.
HNOC.
For Terrebonne Parish, which is French for...
Good earth. Good land.
Good earth.
Which is funny because good luck is bon chance here.
Basically, Terrebonne Parish was named because it had a lot of fertile soil because it comes right off the delta of the Mississippi, so it's got all that
good earth.
Plethora of good soil. So...
It's a bunch of good land for doing stuff with.
2020 census.
We had some real ingenuitive naming census around here.
I'm telling you.
Red Stick, Good Earth.
There was 109,000, almost 110,000 in the parish altogether, the Terrebonne Parish. And this was technically, I think as of 2024, 1994. It's the 5th largest in size. Like, it's 2,100 square miles, Terrebonne Parish. But 2,100 square miles and only 110,000 people.
Yeah, well, you're in bayou swampland. Yeah, like
exactly.
You can only if they did a count for gators though.
Oh no, yeah, they're for sure. Population way up.
It's about like Florida and cows.
Right.
Per capita cows are higher than people.
And interestingly enough, Terrebonne actually accounts for about 20% of the entire seafood production of Louisiana.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
Oysters, shrimps, crabs, and fish. And according to they wrote their own press release, but they have the finest oysters in the world, and they actually do ship their oysters all over the country and all over the world.
I mean, oysters just taste like salty snot, anyways.
Gross.
So
also gross. Yes. But up until the 1970s, they were actually
I get behind some crawfish,
mostly for their oil. And then after the 1970s, kind of slipped back down.
After we used all of it everywhere.
More than 10% of people in the parish today, actually over 10%, still speak French in the home, like fluently. They speak that is their language.
I am curious. French,
Creole French.
Okay.
But they're known as the jambalaya, capital of the world, or as we say in this house, the jambayaya, capital of the world.
Some of us just eat it.
Right. So, listen to this. Houma is known for their thriving music and art scene, as is every other southern Louisiana anything. They're known for their friendly, warm, vibrant community, just like really helpful, really friendly. But they're also known for their swamp tours. And they are one of the top destinations for bird watching.
Okay. I was trying to figure out why you would want to go on a swamp tour. And I mean, swamps are pretty.
They can
They're
be.
just...
Where we're going today is going to be in the Bayou Blue area of Houma in Terrebonne Parish. And this actually, the Bayou Blue area technically goes all the way across Iberville, LaForest, Jefferson. Our dumping area actually stretches across 6 different parishes. So it wasn't like, well, and he did go and repeat in the same spot within a couple hundred feet or so of each other, but he would vary it about like Derek Todd Lee did, where he would jump back and forth to different spots to put the body.
It's our Bayou body belt, because we don't have a Bible belt.
I'm not doing that. Ronald Dominique was born in Thibodaux. He was born January 9th of 1964.
His favorite restaurant is Thibodaux.
Probably not.
And he say, "Go Tiger."
No.
You're welcome, Weezy.
None of that. I'm gonna leave it in just for her though. He was born into a low-income family. They were very poor, but again, when you talk about being poor, maybe don't have 8 kids.
I mean, trade up the time of having like 8 to 14 kids and just having maybe half of them thrive.
Also down here, because especially if you're fishing or if you're using your kids for labor. Right. And I believe the closest one in relation to him was a sister, but he may have been the youngest. That I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't get a whole lot of further information other than he had a close sister, but she was older. Of the last 2, as I read it, were his older sister and him. And
probably not the youngest. I don't see the youngest really becoming a serial killer like ever.
But let me explain, because I do know he had other sisters and brothers, because of the way I was watching. I believe that one was First Blood. Again, thank you, Jester, for.
Yeah, I like how. But
he actually referred me to that for the other case, and then I saw that it actually had an episode on Dominique as well. So I was like, oh, cool.
Accidentally awesome.
I know he had older brothers and sisters, because it was noted in this episode that he was always a little bit different. He always preferred to go with the girls instead of going and working with the boys. He preferred to go do whatever the girls were doing instead of going and doing what the boys were doing. And he kind of got made fun of for that. And it turns out that he was very much gay. Very much
also
into that.
Follows a whole lot.
Right. So already he's not the most popular. Okay, so he hangs out with his sisters a lot. He's kind of girly, effeminate, if it were, as it were. And he's in Glee Club and chorus, and obviously he's going to be bullied, right? That's kind of setting the whole stage for all of this.
While I'm aware that this is a time period piece,
yes.
and I just have a problem with, obviously, he's going to be bullied.
Well, I mean, because I was getting to the extra part where he was overweight, he was awkward, he didn't know how to interact well with his peers.
I'm getting to the extra part, but there should never be an obviously he was going to be bullied.
Well, I mean, because kids are assholes. But yes, I agree with you, love. 100% of the time.
I got you, and I know you do. I just...
Shitty. It's shitty.
I don't like people.
Which is fine. It works out well. You got one on your side, honey. Woohoo! So, everybody that knew him during those times, he never actually admitted to being gay. He was bullied a lot for it, but he never came out. He never actually came out until much later in his adult life. Now, everybody who knew him then, though, said he was practically harmless, that they had all the doubts. They're just, blown away when his arrest happened, because they never would have guessed at the time that he was going to be responsible for something such as this. Now, in his older life, he never really found a place that he could fit in well. He didn't fit in with, I want to say, the straight side of his life. And he would also, later on in his adulter years, he would dress in drag, and he would perform as Patti LaBelle at the local gay clubs. But he never really got along with people in that group either. So he was kind of a misfit in tugging in between, finding out who he actually was, and he didn't sit well in either side. Now, that was all the way up until he found the Lions Club, which was full of elderly people. He would go up there and he would call the bingo numbers for him, and he kind of felt like he belonged. Like, everybody up there liked him. They thought he was a nice guy. They got along with him well. No issues. But then you have this whole other side where he gets dressed up as Patti LaBelle and does horrible impersonations and sings at the local gay club. And again, the people that they interviewed, like on the episodes of things that I watched, because there are multitudinous episodes, whether it be podcasts, whether it be the ID series. They've got First Blood. You've got, I believe they've got a Forensic Files on him. I mean, the gamut. So there is no trouble finding these things that I'm talking about, but I'll also have that linked in the show notes. So my point, though, is that...
a veritable smorgasbord.
Right, yeah. There was no lack of wealth of information, so...
An interesting way to put that. I like it. I'm not mad at it. That's new.
Most of his adult life, though, like I said, it was marked with not really having a place in the world. He didn't fit in with the gay crowd. He didn't fit in with the straight people. He kind of fit in with the elderly people, but that's just because he went along to go along. Like, for the most part, he lived with his mom or his family, his sister. Like, he was in and out of their homes, or living off of their lands in a trailer or what have you. He had multiple different medical problems, according to him. He didn't really have any kind of goal in life. Like, he initially, as a kid, he did pretty well, like, not exemplary in school or anything, but he didn't do terrible. I believe he ended up trying to go and do some kind of military thing, but didn't make it.
Sure got a hell of a lot accomplished in his life for not having a particular goal.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll get there. And his actual criminal history wasn't all that... Like, it wasn't lengthy in terms of, sexual violent crimes. The only one in his entire criminal history that even showed any kind of, similarity, obviously was the most heinous thing that he had in his criminal history, which was a forcible rape charge. However, that was just a charge. He was never convicted, or he never pled. Pay attention to these dates, all right?
You asked the question.
Are you listening? Pay attention to the dates.
Now.
Okay. So up until 96.
Okay.
He hadn't had anything greater than, I think he paid fines for harassment, a couple of DWIs, disturbing the peace. All of those were just fine paid or a couple of nights in jail.
Parking in the wrong spot while stalking.
Yeah, those ones.
What?
And never more than just like a slap on the wrist because it wasn't really anything crazy. However, August 25th of 1996, he was arrested for forcible rape. Apparently, for this charge specifically, he was arrested and there was a $100,000 bond set because the victim in this case happened to escape out of a window of his trailer that he was living in Thibodaux at the time, screaming, half-dressed, running through the trailer park, screaming that Dominique had tried to kill him. He had like one handcuff hanging off of one arm or some kind of restraint off of one arm. That's how they found the victim, which immediately pointed back to the trailer, which is where Dominique was, and they arrested him, $100,000 bond. My point is, he got out at the end of 96.
And then he got in.
Until his arrest almost a decade later.
I apologize.
Almost a decade later, he never hits radar again. He never gets arrested for DWI. He never gets in disturbing the peace. Now, the only one that I do know... Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. He had one other... Maybe two other interactions. But the one that actually stood out was the one where he went to a Mardi Gras parade in... Oh, I forget which parish that was. Either way, down there in the south. The entire state, by the governor mandate, we get Mardi Gras off as a state. Holiday. It's a state holiday. Anyway,
school, work, banks.
I couldn't begin to guess. Couldn't begin to guess which parish he was in at this time.
Louisiana.
But one of the bigger parades is what I'd be guessing. I would guess Natchitoches, but I don't know for sure. So apparently at this parade, he had allegedly slapped a lady because she had left her baby stroller in the parking lot that he thought a baby was in.
Good for him.
So he was like yelling and like getting belligerent with her and smacked her
a little bit.
But that one, he actually got the parish offender deferred program, and he was actually done with that by October. And that was in February.
We've been done with that by dinner.
Right.
I thought there was a baby in that. I played.
Right. So that was in February of 2002. The only other one was a little bit 2 years before then. It was he pled guilty to disturbing the peace, and he paid a fine, and it was a misdemeanor that blipped, barely a blip.
That's my personal judgment on that.
But it kind of worked with the way that it worked with Dominique was when he got worked up and he got on his soapbox, he didn't get off of it. It just snowballed into him continuing to progressively get more aggressive and worse. So other than the couple of little touch ups,
rabbit trailing.
Because that one I believe was just. I think he. That one technically wasn't domestic, so it probably was just a battery. Paid the fine for the disturbing the peace in May 2000, and then he had the Mardi Gras thing that was in 2002. But he was done with that off of the parish offender program in October, and then he was not heard from by the police until 2006. So let's get into that, shall we? However, we got to go back because his murder spree did not actually start in 2000. It didn't start in 2002. It didn't start in 1999 or 98. It actually started almost immediately after he was released from prison. And at this point, he has made up his mind that he does not want to go back. So
he encountered some things, and
what do you think he does about that, sir?
Pass the buck.
Oh, okay. So I mean, obviously, he still wants to have sex with these men because that was the motive for the first one, where the guy crawled out the window and said he was trying to kill me. He was in the act of trying to sexually assault him. At the same time, the guy just got loose and crawled out the bathroom window. So the possibility of having a witness to be able to testify to send him back to jail, because he realized now, no witness, no jail, because that's why they let him out, right? His witness didn't show up.
It's a horrible realization to have. It's also a really good realization to have.
Right. Well, in this case, it's really bad.
It's always really bad. It's just a really smart one.
So He realized that without the victim to testify in his court case, he was released from prison, and they did nothing. There was nothing that happened because that victim did not appear. So what does that tell him? Oh, okay, well, just...
Nobody, no voice, no crime.
Pretty much. If that's your only evidence to say against him saying, I didn't do anything, then you have nothing. In July of 1997
You're welcome.
is when Dominique's first confirmed victim was actually murdered. He was a 19-year-old African-American male named David Levron Mitchell.
LeVron?
Levron. Levron. Levron.
That wasn't how I was expecting that to be spelled in South Louisiana. But I like that one.
He was not similar to most of the victims of Dominique, and we'll get to that here in a minute, but he was hitchhiking, which was not outside of the norm. Still in the late 90s, it was still a thing. So he was by himself, and he was on his way back from his grandma's house after he went to a friend or a relative's birthday party. His body was found 2 days.
Super sad.
It is.
Like, relative's birthday party, and you had to hitchhike your way home?
No traces of physical trauma, no drugs, no alcohol, no other cause other than the lungs having the ditch water in them. So
that'll do it.
Initially, his death was ruled as an accidental drowning. But wait, his dad was like, y'all got him fucked up, because like he was an excellent swimmer. There was no way he would have drowned in the ditch with the water level being that low. And if that's the case, why did he have his pants down by his ankles? His body was found in the ditch face down with his trousers and underwear around his ankles.
And the only thing I can think of other than being forcefully unalived is drunk.
Drunk. But there was no alcohol. The autopsy confirmed that. So somebody dropped a big ass ball. And you know, a lot of people want to say that because the majority, and I say the majority, it was like of all of the victims, all but maybe 3 or 4 were actually African Americans. Now, everybody wanted to say it was racially motivated. That I don't think was the case.
Might be regionally motivated.
That one, absolutely.
Because that's a lot of black criminals.
He was very much so a opportunistic. Call him as I see him, except pick him up where I can get him. That's all it came down to. I don't think it had anything to do with race at all.
I sees it, I gets it, I goes on.
And I because I think that comes into play as well when you talk about the ages. Because generally, if somebody has a type or a preset idea of what they're trying to get or to do, right? They have a type. They have a modus operandi.
His type was available.
Yes. Available, alone,
My type is
if they
female.
were breathing. But in his case, not even, he didn't care. But anyway,
Oof. Ow.
he was looking for someone alone. He was looking for someone hitchhiking, desperate, either on drugs or wanted drugs, or would take money to be able to go get drugs. Like, there was a lot of things that all of those were inside of his wheelhouse, yes.
Yeah.
But what color you were, how old you were, he didn't care.
Because all of those were just makes the
means
more
to
vulnerable and
Yep.
more available and more easily swayed to his purposes.
Unsure if he got his actual lust sated at that point, because it was right at...
Obviously not. If it was his first one.
Right,
His
but
last one.
no, it was his first one. But generally, there's a cooling off period that is longer. It was only 6 months later that he killed his next victim. They've done all of the research and everything that they've done, and you can see in he's kind of got a pattern of, you know, he'll get one and then he'll take a break. He'll get one and he'll take a break, and then it snowballs towards the end right before he gets arrested. But
As it usually do.
that, yes, absolutely, because it does become harder to quench. It does become harder to quell that urge. It does become more of a need to do it more and more frequently, because you keep feeding the beast, and they keep coming back.
Beast
for
in
more.
this case is
So
apparently a bunny.
apparently, so the second murder, it was also in St. Charles Parish. It was in December of '97. He strangled Gary Pierre, and not much of what I found about a lot of these victims, actually, and that was a really sad part of this case. The sheer amount and the high number of victims in this case leads to them being under sold as actual human beings. And I will have links to every article that I could find specifically in regards to these people as people. I have those saved as part of my notes. It would be really difficult for me to have any kind of episode within any kind of time limit that would be feasible for you guys if I was to do that. But I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that I have those resources available. Please, if you have a minute, if you're sitting on a toilet not doing anything else, just go look and see these people were actual humans. They had lives. They had people that loved them and missed them dearly. So don't just take it as a name and a drug user or somebody who was in the wrong place at the wrong time doing whatever they could to get by. So
while that may be true, that's not all of them.
The best way to say that is that that's not the only thing that they were. They weren't just a victim, and they weren't just a drug user or whatever.
To the police at the time because they were trying to find a pattern, but other than that, that should not even be a
They found Gary's body.
I'm good. How are you?
He was fully clothed. He had no signs of physical trauma, and there were no drugs found in his system. Now, it
He got smarter.
didn't say that he didn't have any alcohol, but it did say he had no drugs.
I'm just saying, this is South Louisiana. Anytime around Mardi Gras season, alcohol kind of suspected.
Well, I still think he was getting his his wits about him.
Don't call the feelers. Thank you.
Because they do make a point in all of the research that I did. They say most of the victims were sexually assaulted and or raped. Because in a few, like Gary Pierre, because he was found fully clothed and because there were no physical signs of trauma and no DNA or no otherwise telltale signs of some kind of assault, they can't just assume that he was. That was the preliminary and the primary focus of all of this.
And I hate to bring the drug thing back up just as soon as we got off it, but especially with those that had a tendency or a proclivity, I would say that it was probably more likely that there was consensual sex.
Likely, yeah.
And still dead.
Well, see, this is where it gets interesting. So, when we get towards the end of the story, you'll understand why I'm making faces over here at you, because,
you make faces at me all the time.
This one gets. I don't understand.
It makes less and less sense.
So much less. Okay, so.
Okay.
That one was at the end of 97 in December. The next one came in July. So he skipped 6 months and then he again come back 6 months later. This one was in July, at very end of July, so right before August of 98. Dominique, he murdered 38-year-old Larry Ranson.
That's a bit different.
And he was very much a vagrant. He was very much known for his drug addiction, drug affliction. And this was technically the first victim that was found and later proven to be a victim of Dominique that was subjected to bondage. October of 98, so we went from end of July 31st, to beginning of October. Dominique met 27-year-old Oliver LeBancs in Metairie. So now we're still jumping all over the place here. He's staying in the southern part, but he's going from different areas. Like I said, Dominique met him, Oliver, in October of 98 in Metairie. And after Dominique got arrested, he claimed that Oliver had offered him sexual favors in exchange for money. And he did end up having sex with him. But again, for whatever reason, he assumed that he had to get rid of him, so he beat him and strangled him, and then disposed of his body on the outskirts of Metairie, where it was found on October 4th. Well, the good part, I said there's not any good part to this, but the positive that came out of this situation, in this one specifically, was that when they found Oliver's body, they did find traces of semen at autopsy. They didn't have a person to hook it up to at that point in 98.
You're right, it does sound horrible, but woohoo!
But they did have that, so they kept that, put it up the fridge and said, hey, we're going to hang on to that. So,
laying the foundation. For later,
relatives
we don't get your ass.
And family members and friends of Oliver LeBanc confirmed that he had only recently resorted to leading a vagrant lifestyle after he had been fired from his job for using drugs. So he was obviously in the strongest throes of addiction at this point and was willing to do things that he normally wouldn't have, and he was just in a really, really bad spot. The first sign of any kind of bondage was in July of 98. Oliver LeBancs, transient, drug user, still loved and missed by family. He turns up.
Said not to use that as their descriptive vectors, and then
he was found
one person later.
October 4th of 1998. He was 27 years old, and he had DNA present.
Woohoo!
So
Sorry, but woohoo!
we're woohooing because we're glad they have something. So eventually, when they do have the suspect, they can test the DNA and go from there. So also in October of 98, Dominique met the youngest victim that he would take the life of. 16-year-old Joseph Brown met Ronald Dominique in Kenner, Louisiana, and according to Dominique, in one of his many confessions, he lured him to the truck and said he would sell him some crack cocaine. He actually did have crack cocaine. They both used some in the vehicle together, and then Dominique beat him several times over the head with a blunt object and strangled him with a plastic bag.
Greg is whack, y'all.
Again, unsure about the sexual assault or rape aspect of that. The resources that I pulled up, they said that it was likely a post-mortem, which meant necro. So, unsure. He didn't confess to that. And then,
I'm done.
right out a month later, Dominique again did the exact same ruse. Saw him on the side of the road because that was his stick. That was his thing. He would cruise around looking for men or younger men, whatever, just alone men on the side of the road. He'd put in areas that he knew were well trafficked by these specific types or groups of people, and would offer them the crack cocaine or whatever drug of choice, or offer them money for whatever.
Pliable.
He even had this ruse, get this, if they turned down the gay side of a sexual encounter, he said he would
back at the house.
He would show them a picture of his wife that was just shy. And he would say, "Hey, come back to my house with my wife. She wants to have sex with a random guy. We'll pay you, but she's shy and she doesn't want to come and do this part of it." When they get back to the house, you know what he'd say? "She's real shy and she's worried about being overpowered, so you have to be restrained before she'll come out."
Shit, that's actually pretty fucking smart.
So once you get restrained, I'll let her know. She'll come in, she'll do the dirty, and then you'll get the money and you can go, or you'll get the drugs and you can go.
Right.
Once he had them in handcuffs, they were his.
Yeah, I mean, like that takes a special kind of trusting and willing person, or just real desperate. But
Right.
That's pretty damn smart.
Right. So that's where he picked up the 16-year-old in Kenner, and then the 18-year-old Bruce Williams basically had the same thing happen to him. Offered drugs, got into the truck, beat him, strangled him, threw him out. And so in 99, May, he was cruising around Kenner. Like I said, that's what he did. Like, that became his entire way of luring, fishing, baiting, however you want to put it.
He was a Kenner boy now.
So he came across 21-year-old Manuel Reed, who offered to sell him drugs. So Dominique said, "Sure, I'll buy some drugs off of you." And he let him jump into his truck, where he proceeded to rape and strangle him.
That seems like a bad plan.
He later tried to dump the body in a dumpster about a mile from where 16-year-old Joseph Brown's body was found.
That seems like a really bad plan.
Yeah, it was in an industrial zone.
I don't care.
So
don't shit where you eat.
However, in this case as well as Oliver LeBancs, Manuel Reed was found at autopsy to have traces of semen. Belonged to an unknown male.
Raggy.
Now, at this point, they still hadn't tied the two unknown males together.
But now there's two of them.
But now they have DNA from two separate crime scenes, two separate bodies, two separate victims. Now, about a month later, so that would have been around June of 1999.
Real quick, rebounds again.
Dominique.
Or now.
Yep, he killed 21-year-old Angel Mejia, who these are not my words, these are the words that I got from sources, was a hobo with past convictions for drug possession. Now, I kind of misspoke.
Yeah, I've known a couple of them, and they're pretty good people usually.
Right. I kind of misspoke on the last one because I said he tried to dump his body, the body of Manuel Reed. He succeeded in dumping Manuel Reed's body in a dumpster. In Mejia's case, in Angel's case, he tried, but after, not really being able to succeed, because
too tall, body too big.
Well, no, it just said that he tried to dump him in the dumpster, but he discovered it was full, which it had to have been like slam packed full for him not to be able to even get it in there.
Bodies are pretty big.
He just left it on the
And
street.
they're pretty awkward.
So at that autopsy for Angel,
All right, screw it.
for Angel Mejia, at autopsy they discovered that, or the coroner concluded that the victim had been tied up with rope prior to his death, but was not found with rope on his body. So obviously the killer is using tools and then taking them or keeping them with him, so he has a little bit of knowledge there of crime scene stuff. While they were doing these investigations, and you have to remember, these are being found in different places. So one was in St. Charles Parish, one was over in Metairie, now this is in Kenner, and these are all in like different areas, all in the southern Louisiana part. But if you're not from here, look those up. It's Metairie, Kenner, and then the one is just St. Charles Place or Parish. But they're all
if you're
down.
Not from here, you're gonna need to spell Metairie.
Metairie.
Yeah, I
Metairie.
never would have gotten that.
Okay. Metairie.
That, yeah,
Okay.
maybe, but that doesn't sound right. But that sounds like it's spelled.
The investigators that were looking in these bodies that were keep popping up all over the southern stretch of Louisiana here, they realized that, and actually do establish a firm connection between Mejia, Brown, the 16-year-old, and Pierre. They all lived in close, like, doors apart from each other. So they thought there was a connection there. And they actually had in mind one of the next victims.
That just happened to be the street that he was driving through.
Exactly, because that, like I said, he pinpointed the area of where these people were known to be centralized. And then again, in late August of 1999, Dominique met 34-year-old drug addict Mitchell Johnson, offering him drugs in exchange for sexual favors. He took Mitchell out to the forest outside of Metairie, where he was bound, raped, and strangled to death. His fully nude body was discovered on September 1st, 1999. So I don't know. I would say that they didn't say that he accidentally drowned in the ditch. I would guess that that's not what they put on his cause of death. I'm not sure, though. It didn't give me a whole lot of details. But I'm assuming at this point they realized that all of these guys that are being found, having been or still were bound, nude, partially nude, or fully nude,
Traces
sexually
of binding,
assaulted,
traces of nudity, and traces of
and then
fucking.
just kind of left, dumped somewhere off in the middle of nowhere in the same general area. I'm not saying it's real close together, but close enough for it to be a thing. All of them, and they all got the same cause of death for the most part.
Well, when I woke up, I didn't have no pants on.
Strangled,
The hooker was dead. I
asphyxiated,
did what anybody else would do.
Beat over the head. Most of them sexually assaulted. You know, at this point, I guess they're finally getting their heads together. And I'm not knocking law enforcement, guys. Don't come at me. My point is, there were so many things that could have been. Could have been done better. So in January of 2000, and remember, this is one of the times, and I say it wasn't in January, it was actually in May of 2000, was another blip on the radar for Dominique. But it was just a disturbing the peace, so there's no telling what that actually was. But it had nothing to do with the 34-year-old that he murdered in September, or the January 2000 victim, the 23-year-old Michael Vincent in LaForce.
But goddamn, never did figure out what he wanted to do or how to do
No, and I think that had a lot to do with the fact that, and I don't want to blame this on anybody who has more than 1 or 2, 3 children, but you get put into a group of 8 kids that are close enough in age, you get kind of pushed to the side, you get forgotten, you get grouped in or locked in with all the others. You don't really get to make your own or create your own identity unless you are that strong of a personality, and he just wasn't.
Yeah, no, you form a pack.
So
you form a pack or you get left out.
Right, and he found whatever comfort that he found in that and rolled with it, and then was okay with just
I was one of one.
Maintaining, I guess. So in January of 2000, he took the life of another victim, which would have been 23-year-old Michael Vincent in LaForge Parish. In early October, he actually became really closely associated with a 20-year-old Kenneth Randolph Jr. This guy,
just saying,
because I hate,
that's a white kid.
I hate
Kenneth Randolph
throwing any kind of mud onto anybody who has been a victim of a homicide. However, sometimes karma comes around. I'm not saying that this was the case here, and anyway, I'm gonna throw it here, and I'm gonna say what I say.
In our sidebar, golden rule, real important.
20-year-old Kenneth Randolph Jr. was a thrice prosecuted and convicted child molester who lived in the same trailer park as Dominique.
I'll say whatever. They get whatever comes to them in whatever form they get it.
Yeah, so Dominique actually lured Randolph to his trailer by saying that there was a young girl there that wanted to meet him and have, interactions with him.
I'm sorry to the family of, he deserved to die.
And when he got back to the trailer, he attacked and raped him, and then strangled him, and then took his body to a field outside the city where he was left partially nude, and his remains were found on October 6th.
That feels like hella just desserts.
Of 2000. And that's why I said, sometimes karma comes around, sometimes it bites you, and sometimes it gets back to you. It may not be as quickly as some people would have hoped, but I don't know. Like I said, I hate throwing any kind of mud on anybody, but when you are
almost every case, this is not one of them.
Prosecuted 3 times as a child, we don't fuck with cats, we don't fuck with old people, we don't fuck with kids. It's just not okay.
And for any victims or families of victims of that, if they didn't die and they went to jail, it's worse for them, I promise you.
Right.
Find some solace in that.
Right, for sure.
I promise you it is.
So
don't nobody like them.
That was at the end of October. I'm sorry, of October. That was at the end of 2000 straight up, right? 2000?
But I don't know.
Listen.
I was trying to pay attention, but there was a lot.
Okay.
And we were doing month by month by month.
Right. January 2000.
I don't know what year we started.
January 97. 97 is where we started because he got out of jail in November of 96.
We started the month by month. Was what I meant.
We haven't really gone month by month yet. So
the last 4 have been the next month.
Regardless, January 2000 is when he killed 23-year-old Michael Vincent, who was
found in the field.
He was not the child molester. Kenneth Randolph Jr. was a 30-time prosecuted child molester who lived in the trailer park near Dominique and was lured
in close proximity.
Right. So his body was found on October 6th, and this was in 2000. Now, from January, when they found that body in October, they didn't have any other interactions, body found, anything like that, until October 2002.
Huh.
So it was over 2 years, because it was actually in January that he killed Randolph Jr., the molester. They didn't find his body till October, but he was killed in January, so he was over 2 years before he killed anybody else. So October 12th of 2002.
They found him in the field outside of town?
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't in like a public noticeable traffic spot.
Mm-mm, no, everything he did was under shade of darkness and under cloak. He did.
You say that, but he left the body in front of a dumpster.
Because he meant to do
in
an industrial area. Anyway, on October 12th of 2002, in the late evening, Dominique met 26-year-old Anoka Jones, a financially strained petty criminal on the streets in Houma.
Sorry, I was just that's a really cool name.
It is.
I like that.
Anoka. and he attacked Jones on the street and tied him up, raped him, strangled him, and then
Like straight up on the street?
Yeah.
Not like,
Well, he pulled him
I
from the
understand-
street to the
Yeah,
vehicle.
no, I understand not on the street, but like,
Yeah.
didn't go anywhere for that.
Yeah.
That's some balls.
Yeah. So he later dumped Jones's body under a highway overpass, where it was discovered several hours later. So this is probably one of the freshest bodies that they've come across as
Yeah, it
of
went
yet.
from, January to October to a couple of hours.
Right.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So
Good job, guys. You found one out in the open. Woohoo!
within those same few months there at the end of 2002, Dominique and his sister had actually moved to the rural, unincorporated community of Bayou Blue, which was that bayou area that I spoke about at the very beginning of the episode. There, he was actually given a job as a specialist who checked electricity levels at the local power supply. So he...
Just for clarification, unincorporated community. How little does that have to be population size?
Well, because it's about like staying down there by the camp where Leanne's at. They call that the camp.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're saying in the same way that they're saying this is Bayou Blue area. That's the camp area. That's,
I figured this was a much larger
everybody in the town
area.
knew what it was, but it was not a...
Okay, got you.
Okay.
I just know that Louisiana also has unincorporated communities,
No.
which are a state-recognized thing as well.
No.
And I thought that was what
Not
you
this
meant.
one.
Okay.
So,
We're going to call this a sector or a district of the town, or like...
it's a rural
It's
area.
an area in the town that y'all know what it is.
It's all gonna buy. That's it. That's all you need to
Yeah,
know.
I got you.
So,
You kept on calling it Bayou Blue like this was some like statewide.
well, because
Bayou Blue.
Because Bayou Blue is a large area. This, what they're talking about right now, is the community that was sitting outside of the town, known as the Bayou Blue community.
Got you.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Much more clear. Thank you.
the job that he got and was employed to do in the local power supplies of the different areas, it allowed him a lot of free time to travel, and it was going in between these parishes, which allowed
Well, that's safe.
access to all of these different areas where
Wait,
he was
no.
dumping all of these bodies. So around this same time in late 2002, Dominique killed 19-year-old Detrell Woods, dumping both him and a bicycle in the reed fields near one of the power supplies.
Even if it's not an actual kid, it's just a little bit more sad when they dump a bike in a person.
Now, his body wasn't found until May 24th of 2003. So he went over 6 and 7 months. Now it was, December months until spring, but I mean, like, you can only imagine they
Yeah, it's the
barely...
difference in an overpass and a buy.
Well, it was a partially naked body, but they found just pieces. They didn't
Oof.
they didn't find much of anything.
Well, again, it's often the buy. Like that's to be
Right.
expected.
Right. So again,
Animals gotta eat, too.
He takes this big leap of time here. So that was in late 2002 that he killed 19-year-old Detrell Woods. Dumped him. He wasn't found until May of 2003, but it wasn't until October. What is it about October for him? October of 2004 that he lured 46-year-old Larry Matthews
This is Halloween.
to his house with the promise of drugs. So 46 years old, I think this is the eldest victim he had. He was lured to his house with the promise of drugs, but Matthews lost consciousness due to an overdose. But Dominique raped
At
him and
least-
strangled him anyway.
Also shitty.
At least the promise wasn't an empty promise.
And yeah, I guess. And so
Or he came with his own
after that was all done, since he was already unconscious, he just, like I said, took advantage, strangled, and then dumped him about 20 miles away from his house.
Oh, that even counts as
And-
taking advantage. Like,
Nobody even reported.
what's the advantage?
Nobody reported Larry Matthews missing or gone since he was homeless. He was later identified, and his identity had to be established via fingerprints. And they had no one to make contact with to let them know that they had his body. So he was eventually put to a pauper's grave.
That fucking
So-
sucks.
But this is all going to Dominique's angle. Like this is
Oh, yeah,
these
no.
are the people that he was
I just mean
looking
in
and
general,
searching and hunting for.
It just hurts to have
Oh, absolutely.
somebody die and not have a damn body that cared.
Yeah.
Or that knew and cared.
But they knew that they cared.
So this is when it gets spicy.
That just sucks.
Dominique's,
This is when?
And Dominique's next victim would be 21-year-old Michael Barnett, whose body was found October 24th of 2004. So he bam-bammed these two. I hate to say it like
Let's
that.
not say that again.
And it probably had to do with the fact that because he was unconscious, it didn't give him the same kind of release because it was no resistance.
Yeah, no,
Maybe,
that's
I guess.
that's a
You can't control someone who is already PTFO'd.
I mean,
like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't give you.
it's a very different, not MO, but it's not what he was looking for.
No, that's not the interaction he wanted.
Yeah, it didn't do much for him. It didn't help. I don't think anything helped. But
Sure, give me any cheese, baby.
what?
Cheese.
No, I didn't.
Okay, thank you. I love you. I
Gave you
kept
the
looking,
one?
thinking he was gonna hand me one. And
No, I gave you the one earlier.
yeah, but it had hair all in it.
Got it.
It had been dropped, I guess.
Which one you want?
I don't care, baby. I think there's only Gouda left, but I'm good with both. That's why I got both.
Okay, yeah, no, I think
All good for me.
I was not aware of that. Because food was the only one I was in there looking at, anyways.
So he back-to-back those two.
It's delicious.
Body was found of Michael Barnett, the 21-year-old. He was the first Caucasian victim.
Really?
Yes.
Kenneth Richmond Jr. wasn't.
Nope.
No, why did his name though?
Yeah. No, not at all. So he was the very first one.
If it was if he'd been the third instead of a junior, I would have said he was just wrong.
Right.
Kenneth Richmond III.
So he
Sorry.
was the first one
Now
that
I
was
just
white,
explained it.
and like I said, he back-to-back these two. So it was October of 2004 that he killed Larry, and then he killed Michael within a couple months after that, or within a couple days. I'm sorry, because it was October.
Oh, that's a real quick.
Right. It was
Okay.
October early, and then it was October 24th when they found the body of Michael Barnett. So it had to have been days, if a week apart.
Damn.
But then again, he
That
didn't.
didn't do nothing next.
He doesn't do anything until February of 2005 when he murdered 22-year-old Leon Lorette, an alcoholic vagrant who had previously been living with two of the other victims, which they had initially, investigators at that point had initially assumed, or they had put him on the suspect list, or need to be talked to,
That's fair.
because he was the connecting point between Anoka Jones and Michael Barnett.
Interesting.
They had all lived together at one point. And they actually were looking for him in relation to the murders when they found his body.
Well, they found him.
And he was reportedly the last person to see both of them, or at least Jones, Anoka Jones, because he had reportedly been the last person to see him before his disappearance. But we know that couldn't have been the case because then he was murdered by Dominique.
The
So,
last person to see him before his disappearing event. Because it was really good, and I wanted to.
Okay. 2 months later, in April, so we went from February, when he killed the 22-year-old Leon, who was a suspect in the other murders.
He was just really good shredded, sorry.
It's okay. 2 months later, in April, Dominique met 31-year-old August Watkins.
Two months later in April, he met August.
Yeah.
That's a little bit funny.
He was a homeless man who, again, he was lured to the truck with promises of it. His wasn't even drugs. It was just a bed to sleep in. To spend the night,
that's
overnight.
fucked.
And once he got Watkins back to the trailer,
Not that any of the other ones had any, not being horrible, but like that fucking sucks.
yeah. Well, once Dominique got him back,
That fucking
gave him
sucks.
alcohol, and this was one of the ones where he showed the picture and said she's just shy, and the
Still a little bit
female
funny.
acquaintance of his that wanted to have
Hate
sex
that
with
that's
him
a little bit funny.
wouldn't come out until he was restrained because she was scared for her safety.
And at that point, I almost want to blame the victim. Almost.
Watkins allows Dominique to tie him up,
Dumbass.
at which point he proceeds to rape and then strangle him.
And this is not me king shaming. If you like being tied up, go for it.
Go nuts.
But god damn it, at least see the person that's doing it. Know what you're doing.
Be safe. After they found the body of Watkins, they begin to realize, at this point is when they begin to realize, there's a serial killer active in Kenner and Homa.
Just
and-
saying, y'all could do better on a couple of these.
they
not
are
even-
doing much better now because of how close-minded and how secular they were when back in earlier years and times of yawn.
What, like 2 weeks ago?
Right. Well, they were very, like I said, secluded. They were just cut off, and especially in the rural areas like this in Kenner and Homa. They start to realize that, hey, all these bodies, they got the same shit happening. They are the same type of people. They are the same. Well, hell, some of them have even lived together. Some
And
of
if
them
not together, then nearby.
really close by, like within a couple doors.
Damn
yeah.
same neighborhoods. It must be somebody from one of them.
Yeah. So they're thinking, we probably got a serial killer, guys, which is not unsurprising because especially at this point in time in Louisiana, you had at least 2 other freaking active serial killers. So yeah, that makes all the sense. Let's add one more.
Maybe that's why they didn't think it was one in the first place. Like, can't be this many of them right now.
Right, and that's very likely because it just seems unreal. So after they find Watkins' body, they because of the striking similarities with the strangulation, body dumping.
I don't want my laugh in right here. I just caught Watkins, and I immediately went to Sherlock. Mm-hmm. And
Watson.
Yeah. Either way, though, it's similar enough that it made me chuckle, and I was not laughing at anything that just happened.
Okay. So after only a few days of the murder that he had committed against Watkins. And then later that same summer, he murdered 28-year-old Alonzo Hogan in St. Charles Parish. And then again in Terrebonne Parish, 17-year-old Wayne Smith, luring them both, Alonzo and Wayne, under the pretense of having sex with one of his female friends. So he used this, get them to come back, allow themselves willingly to be restrained, and then he would proceed to assault, rape, and strangle and murder, and then dump their bodies. Now, the major difference between all of these other victims, except for the very first one, and Hogan and Smith, these last two, the 28-year-old and 17-year-old in St. Charles and Terrebonne, they had no criminal record. They had no prior criminal convictions and were not known to use drugs.
This is not a very stable table. I mean, like, you got an actual table right here. And, like,
So,
just saying.
Hogan, Alonzo Hogan, the 28-year-old, had been raped pre-mortem. And while there were no traces of semen found on his corpse, since his body had been disposed of in a canal, and it was discovered a few days later.
Oh, well, yeah.
But because it was in a canal, there was water, there's no way. So
not a couple
they
days
could
later.
they could tell that he was raped. They did not get any DNA back from his body. So in September,
Okay, so they didn't get any usable DNA.
right?
Okay.
Or well, I mean, like if they found it, they like you said, they couldn't use it. But I don't.
Right.
It says that they didn't find any. 2005. That September, Dominique murdered 40-year-old Chris DeVille, who was trying to hitchhike out of Napoleonville following Hurricane Katrina. Again, he was taking advantage of the fact that these guys were down on the luck, trying to get where they needed to go, and he later dumped Chris DeVille's body in a reed field on the side of the road. So,
I'm just saying, if he was active around the time of after Katrina, like, there could be a lot of victims we have no idea about.
Exactly. Well, and we'll kind of get to that, touch on that here.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that you said there were extensive confessions, and like,
so
that's maybe that could also just be the ones he thought mattered, or the ones that stood out in his mind.
right. Well, no, I don't think that's the case. I think
that's a lot of vagrants or down on their luck people that are hitchhiking and moving and
well,
not
and a
having
couple of
place
these
to
were not
stay.
identified until he identified them or where they were. So
Right.
he later, like I said, he later dumped his body in the reed field, and unfortunately, his skeletal remains were discovered a month later and identified by relatives only because of an ID card that happened to be left beside the body with his personal belongings.
Shit. Wonder what ate him.
Because he was so degraded, they would not have been able to identify him any other way. That was after Katrina, so that probably played a big role in what they had or why they hadn't found him within the month or so, because they had a lot going on at that point.
Yeah.
So that was at the end of September, and then
one of a couple of times that no blame placed on this on anything timing wise during this period of time.
Right.
Y'all had a lot of fucking shit going on.
Exactly. So then again in late November of that same year, post Katrina, Ronald Dominique, he murdered 21-year-old Nicholas Pellegrin in LaForge Parish. And while they were investigating Pellegrin's death, the relatives told the police that shortly before his death, he had borrowed $400 from a local drug dealer and had missed the payment date, after which he began to receive death threats. So before...
That's some real good timing.
Before Dominique's capture and confession, Pellegrin's death was thought to have been drug-related.
Which,
and that's what they attributed it to.
That really follows.
So, the last and final victim, and I think this is probably the longest amount of time we've had to spend talking about how many victims over what span of time, because it's been a lot. His last confirmed victim was 27-year-old Christopher Sutterfield. And Christopher Sutterfield was different in many ways, because... Well, technically he claimed bisexual, so that was one thing. Ronald had actually met and began romantically dating him.
Oh shit.
Right?
And then they did the dirty and then he killed him.
And then again in October. I have no idea why this guy's October is so fucked. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. Huh?
When's his birthday?
January. I have no idea what happened to him in October. And the only thing I can figure is that October is triggering for him because that's when he was in jail and that's when he was raped.
Oh, well,
that's the. But
that makes a whole hell of a lot of sense.
But it literally just dawned on me that's why he was. Yeah. That's when he was in jail.
I didn't realize that.
I didn't either until literally my brain made the jump.
That makes a lot of sense.
So October 14th, while on a date in Iberville Parish.
The blood moon came out.
Dominique just out of nowhere decided he was done, and he hit Sutterfield on the head with a heavy object, causing him to lose consciousness, and then raped and strangled him, and then just left his body. After police found the body, they interviewed the relatives and friends and acquaintances. All of them confirmed that they had seen him with Dominique that night, driving a black SUV, but they weren't able to describe the appearance of Dominique well enough to be able to give them a positive or a significant lead. All they had was the black SUV and some white guy, chunky white guy.
Not to say that it can't be done, but it's just a real odd to rape your romantic partner.
But why would you feel the need to do so? Y'all were dating.
That's what I'm saying.
Crazy. Why would you take the one good thing that you've had in ever? You have to assume that it was good because they were dating. They weren't just, F buddies.
Even that would have been good for him.
That's what I'm saying. Why? Because
that
that's the psychosis.
The shit out of him.
That's the psychosis. That's the sociopathy.
It scared the absolute ever-loving shit out of him.
The serial killer in him needed to keep that normality that had been his life for almost 10 years.
He got hungry.
So
right, I also didn't even process that when you had 10 years is a long time to be doing something to just stop. No matter what that something is. In this case, it's not really a good something, but it's real hard to cold turkey a damn thing.
Yeah, for sure. So that was October 14th, 2005.
One would hope killing people would be a little bit easier, but apparently not.
In November 2006, over a year later, Dominique came under police suspicion after a resident of Bayou Blue, a gentleman by the name of Ricky Wallace, reported to his probation officer that he had an interaction with this weird white guy off in a trailer park.
Woo! That reporting to your PO actually did something fucking useful.
Right. So he reported...
That sounds better and more like what I was trying to say.
That Dominique had lured Ricky Wallace, to his trailer in mid-2006, so it was earlier that year, with the offer of sharing drugs and to have sex with some girl. Now, Ricky got in there and he was...
Wait, you tell me one of them actually used their brain?
Listen. Whew. According to what Ricky told his PO and what he later testified to, Dominique had tried to convince him that his girlfriend enjoyed bondage and offered to tie Wallace up. So he had switched his little game up a little bit. It wasn't so much about her safety or protection. It was more so because she was into it. And I guess that worked for him in another case or in another time. So he decided that's what he was going to go with.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he just went with one thing until it stopped working and then tried something slightly
probably,
different.
very likely. And Richie was like, I'm not high enough for this. I'm not drunk enough for this. I don't believe any of the shit that you're spitting. So I'm gonna be out. And Dominique let him leave. He let him walk out the trailer.
Well, yeah, things didn't go the way he was planning for them to go.
Right.
And he didn't. Probably both didn't know what to do and didn't want to attract attention, didn't want a chance to do getting out.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, but if you think about it...
You remember that one time? That one time that somebody got out?
Right.
He ain't letting that happen again.
That ain't gonna
happen. He ain't going back.
He was 33 when this started in 1997. At this point, he's like, what, 40...
43-ish.
43-ish?
You said 10 years.
Right. So I think it was technically 9.
I'm good with rounding in
Either way,
this
10 is good enough. But my point is,
in most cases.
He's obviously overweight, got heart problems, got issues, got all health issues. If he doesn't get them tied up, he's not going to win that fight. So his best option is to be like, oh, you know what, dude, that's cool, that's fine, we'll find somebody else, no big deal.
And again, it hurts a little bit to say, pretty freaking smart.
Yeah.
Like, he picked his battles pretty well.
Right. So he let him leave, no problem. And then later, when Ricky told his PO about this, they said, oh my god, that sounds similar to... that would make sense if they got tied up beforehand.
Oh, shit.
That's how he was doing it, because he's a big guy. They didn't think he was going to be physically capable of doing this to these people, these young strapping bucks that are on drugs and high and everything else, whatever. They couldn't figure it out. Now...
that alone showed where your mind is at. These young strapping bucks.
Okay. Because they couldn't understand how I know what you were saying. Shape and condition that he was in. Okay. They got him, when he told his PO this, it struck a chord. He goes and reports to the investigators.
Like 10
they
years
eventually, at some point later, they get him to testify, but his testimony was called into question because he was a known drug addict. He was obviously on parole or probation for a reason. And he had known to be a liar. Like, he had repeatedly lied in the past, but this did start that ball turning. And this is what I was talking about earlier. We were talking about just telling somebody you trust to be able to tell someone that can get that ball rolling. Because,
which, to be fair, isn't usually your PO, but if that works for you, good for you.
Go for it. So, this traction in just this little bit of information allowed them to bring Dominique in as a suspect. It allowed him to start their questioning, which, while he was being held at the station, because again, this guy's not dumb.
Hit somebody.
They asked him for a blood sample, for a DNA sample, and probably, and this is my guess, speculation station here. My guess is that he knew if he refused that it would look worse. So he went ahead and said, okay. Yeah. And I mean,
he probably had at least a little bit of confidence that there wasn't much or any, and that they wouldn't be able to tie it together. Because I could see, like, he's got 10 years worth and what? A
little bit of confidence. 2 bodies. There were only ever 2 bodies that had recovered DNA, yes.
Again, so, I don't like complimenting this guy, but, like, that's pretty damn good. That's a good track record for that.
Right. So...
not good enough.
He gave them the sample freely, voluntarily. Like I said, I believe in my mind that makes the most sense that he was just like, well, if I tell them no, they're just going to look harder. So this might buy me a little bit of time. So, which in reality, like, if it's going to show something, say no. Yeah, they'll look harder, but they won't be able to get your DNA. Don't drop a damn thing that touches your lips in a public trash can. I'm cutting all that out. We're not doing that. Don't leave your house. Don't smoke a cigarette. All right, so over the next week, DNA testings eventually came back, and obviously, as we were telling the story, you guys already know, it came back. The DNA from the 2 bodies that was recovered from Oliver and Manuel. Woohoo! They matched.
See, the woohoo comes back around.
The semen traces. Good thing now. And that, in and of itself, was enough for an arrest warrant. So on December 1st, 2006, Dominique was arrested at a homeless shelter. Now get this. This is why, in my head, his thought was, okay, well, they're on to me. I'm going to give him my DNA. It's going to give me some time to tie up some loose ends. And the reason I say this is because less than a week before the arrest was made, he was still living with his sister on her property. So it gave him a little bit of time to get off that. Exactly. And that shows a little bit of humanity in him that shows you he did care for his family, at least his sister in some form, because he didn't want her dragged into it in that way. So he did move out.
Doesn't make me feel any better.
It doesn't. And you know, the craziest part was they actually did an interview with the guy that the homeless shelter that he was staying in, the guy who owned it. He was like, I never would have thunk it. And he showed he had no resistance, nothing like that. He actually had a cane. He hobbled out on a cane out of his little bedroom to be arrested and taken into custody. So
canes are real good for bonking. But that back full circles to I think the first thing you said, a highlight on the unsuspecting, on the unassuming.
Very much so.
Anybody can be anybody. Don't trust them until you have a reason to.
Yeah. Or not to. And I mean, like, that's one of those things that, like, I hope and pray at this point in our world as a civilization as on a whole,
that your relationships carefully,
that we understand intricately that anyone has the capacity to be evil, to be a murderer, to be a serial killer, to be one of those people that you didn't see it coming.
At this point, I don't assume people know anything, because, like, I'm sorry.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I hope.
Y'all people don't.
No, I agree with you. That's why we're here. We're educating. So
that's why we're here.
Once at the police station, Dominique agreed to cooperate. He readily, well, I mean, like, obviously he put up a little bit of resistance at first.
What do you do, bonk him with his cane?
No, not really. But he was kind of like, well, what you got? Trying to hold his cards, you know.
I actually laughed.
Then when they told him that the 2 DNA matches came back to the 2 different bodies that were found, he was like, all right, gig's up, we're done. All right, I'm going to confess to 23 murders in total, describing them in only details that would be known to the killer or to the officers at the scene, because cops do this. And this is the thing, another one, education point here, guys. The cops can lie, first and foremost. I need everybody to understand that. Let me say it louder for the ones in the backs. Cops will lie. They can lie about anything and everything. If they tell you they've got DNA, tell them to show you the test. If they show you a test, you need to tell them to let you call the doctor yourself, because they can lie, folks.
And damn it, they will.
Repeatedly. If they say that your buddy has rolled on you,
trust your buddy. Trust your buddy until
laugh at them. Because they're telling your buddy the same thing, and you just gotta hope and pray that he's keeping his freaking mouth shut too. They can lie, they will lie, and they will do it repeatedly, and as to the best of their ability, they are trained to do so. So, in that manner...
And it is only in cases such as these where it happens often enough that I appreciate the fact that they can, but damn it, I don't like it.
Right. So, the only reason I say that is to also bring up the part where they can lie, but they can also withhold information. So they, as investigators, in most cases, will withhold a very specific detail from the press, from anybody outside of the immediate group,
this is important,
because that is something specific that only the person who was there at the time of the murder will know. And, you know, they try to have this type of information, or this single significant piece to be able...
Single. They like to have a couple.
Absolutely. They like to have something that they can corroborate, because you've got people that are crazy, absolutely.
And you've also got people that are really luckily unlucky that will make shit up and be right.
For sure. And you want to be able to say that he knew something that no one else possibly could have known. There's no way he could have got that information.
What's that term? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, or beyond a reasonable doubt, depending on if you're talking to normal people or if you're talking to legal people.
Right.
You're not the normal people.
This is one of those things that every one of the 23 murders that he ended up confessing to, he had that special piece of information that only he could have known if he had been there and killed them himself.
And that's a lot of corroborating factors.
As a result, all of the charges that were brought on him at that time...
Stuck.
He actually only got charged, I think, the jurisdiction that he was in only was responsible for 8 of the murders. So he was charged at that time, in December of 2006, with 8 charges of murder, first-degree murder, and he was held on $8 million, $1 million bond per murder for those charges. Right.
It hurts a little bit.
It does. And this was in Jefferson. I believe it was either in Jefferson or Terrebonne. No, it was in Terrebonne. Terrebonne Parish that he was arrested. The DNA match was actually from Jefferson Parish. But with the confessions from the 8 that were in Terrebonne, that's where they got him on the first-degree murders for that. Now...
Sorry, sometimes my interjections are funny. Sometimes they're just sad.
The district attorney initially stated that he wanted to go for the death penalty. However...
life sentence is way more of a death penalty for this one.
However, due to the amount of victims and due to the amount of information that was given and to the extra information that was given, they weren't even aware that they didn't have. So, like the murder that I talked about earlier that they thought was drug related.
They're coming to the conclusion of what are they going to do? Kill him twice?
Right. Well, and not even that. It was more about getting closure for the families and getting them, because the one Mitchell family was really upset about the police saying that he had drowned in the ditch. That didn't freaking happen.
I'd still be.
And because Dominique did provide that, I don't want to say measure of solace because I don't know which is worse, honestly. No, like being validated that the police picked it up, or knowing that you're.
And they were validated, but they were validated when they said it.
Right. So
all of them knew.
Regardless of all that, they did offer him a plea deal.
Good or what?
Technically, they offered him a plea deal, and the only part of the plea deal that actually mattered was the fact that if he pled guilty, if he took the plea deal, they would take the death penalty off the table.
That ain't a plea for him.
Now, they spent a lot of time in court, and because I still want to touch on this just a little bit, because, like I said, they charged him with 8 counts of first-degree murder. He took the plea deal to 8 counts of first-degree murder. So he is sentenced to 8 counts of first-degree murder, life without parole on all 8 sentences, all 8 convictions.
Concurrent.
I don't even know. I think it may have been concurrent, but it's irrelevant at this point because he's never getting out of prison. Because even if he does, he's still got to go and do the charges for the other parishes as well.
He's got 8 there.
Yes. So
and they're holding. Oh, and that's another thing that cops, prosecutors can and will do. Well, because I didn't learn this until just like last year. Just completely withhold charges. They have you on something.
We don't feel like filing those yet, and the statute of limitations are going to run out on murder, so we'll just hold on to that one.
Yeah, they'll just wait.
Yep.
Just in case you do somehow, some way manage to finagle your ass out of jail.
Yep.
You going right back.
Yep.
So, if you're gonna do some shit, don't get caught. If you have a possibility of getting caught, don't do some shit unless it's really worth it to you.
So he was appointed a public defender when he first got his $8 million bill set.
I really shouldn't be giving you advice.
And
that's horrible advice.
Right. So again, he took the plea. He pled to 8 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life without parole.
Absolutely.
But before any of that happened, he was using a cane, and he was actually wheelchaired a couple times in and out of court to go to his pretrial hearings and review status hearings and all of these things.
Kind of makes me feel like it was a PR stunt.
He was reporting to the court and to anybody that would listen that he had a terrible heart. He had just recently had a heart attack or a stroke or something within a week or two before he got arrested. All of these things because he was trying to make the case for he's too febrile. Like he was not able to carry these things out. I couldn't have dubbed those bodies, But
a decade of hunting and fucking and killing and dumping, that'll fuck up anybody's heart.
Yeah. So.
Shit, just the nerves alone of just trying to not get caught for a decade and fuck up somebody's heart.
Right, and the doctors, they did a full checkup, all of the things,
physicals. Bet they did.
And come to find out, he was severely exaggerating his heart conditions. He did have like a little bit of a murmur or something, and he did have some congenital heart stuff that was starting, but it was very, very exaggerated circumstances. They had no way of proving or disproving either, but they didn't have any records or showing of him having had a stroke or heart attack anytime recently, and. His heart must not have been all that bad because this motherfucker is still alive. He's in Angola right now, breathing the air that we breathe.
He's not breathing the air that we breathe.
It probably smells a little worse, but he's at his forever home in Angola right today, right now.
Honestly, that for one of the few instances, that feels a hell of a lot better than a death sentence. Especially for this one specifically.
Technically, he is on restricted or confinement. He only gets to go outside for 1 hour every 24 hours.
Okay.
He is in his own single cell by himself. He doesn't have any other inmate interaction. He's outside for an hour a day, allowed to shower, but he is closely guarded and closely watched, and he is not allowed interaction with anybody else in the prison at any point in time.
Yeah, they told him he wasn't going to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
They can't allow him around the general population.
Right.
He might get the death penalty.
Right. So that
Like that whole solitary
it's just
confinement
bonkers.
thing, I find
Now,
amusing because it's a lot of just the jail trying to save face.
Now, I want to
They
say,
end up killing somebody they told you they weren't going to kill.
right. I want to point out real quick though. I didn't mention it when we were going through the story because there's just so much that goes on in this case. It's a lot because it's over a 10-year span. You can imagine, but. When it all came down to it, they didn't actually set up a task force for this serial killer until 2005. He started killing these
97.
men in 97. By the time it hit 2005, he had already killed 18 people.
Like, again, with the...
19
and I don't
people.
really like doing this, but, like, good shit.
19
Well
people
done.
he had got away with. Couple of them they didn't even realize or connect to him or to a single
Until he connected
entity.
him to them.
And they didn't do this in 2005. Now, in 2005, they did
Well done.
have a couple of
Right there.
gumshoe detective investigators that were very thorough, and they did, even with this PO, this parolee, making these statements that sounded kind of off the wall, kind of, everybody else was kind of writing them off. These two guys were
Yeah.
very dedicated to finding it, and they
There's always
followed
at least a couple
everything.
good ones, which is the reason that our police structure still is capable of standing
Right,
on
and
its own 2 feet. There's always
those
going to be a couple good ones.
those two investigators are the reason that tip, quote unquote, tip was followed up on, that they did do the initial touch base interview and asked for the DNA from
Attaboy.
Dominique. And
Girl,
without that touch, without that contact, he probably never would have been caught. He would have continued killing until he was either caught in the act or he was caught dumping the body, something along those lines, or he fell out because
Fuck out of y'all.
yeah, because these men didn't stop, and these are the kind of detectives that we need so many of, because regardless of where these guys came from, regardless of their stature or status in life, these detectives were bound and freaking determined to get justice for every single one of them, regardless of who they were, where they came from, how much money their family had, what color they were, and that to me is worth talking
Let me
about.
tell you a secret. We love y'all. Y'all the best.
That's an inside joke. So, I just wanted to throw that out there. I also wanted to kind of toss it out there, too, for the LGBTQ. I'm sorry, I don't know all of the extensions.
Most
That
of them
whole
don't
community,
Not no more.
this left a big mark on the Louisiana community because they said it kind of felt like a black eye on the LGBT people because they said that,
Just a funny turn of phrase.
right, but that's literally the
not.
quote was black eye for the LGBT community because they didn't really welcome him, but they didn't shun him either. So he was a part of their group, and it made them look terrible because he had this gay guy running around killing other gay guys to keep from going to jail after he raped and strangled them and then just dumped their body like they were nothing.
Can we stop and talk about just how fucked that is? That not every white straight serial killer is another black eye on. Like our face would be so damn black.
Well, that's the thing too.
They got
though,
they got what, like 2? We got what, like 2,000?
out of all of the serial killers so
That's
far,
fucking funny.
we've had
In the worst way.
Sean Vincent Gillis, Dominique, and Gainesville Ripper. They were all white. Derek Todd Lee is the only black man so far, but we do have another black man next week. But statistics reportedly, over the years that they've done all of this analysis into serial killers and the like, they found that typically they are white men. They are more likely to have a serial killer that is a Caucasian male than any other race or gender, period. End of story. And, as bad as everybody want to talk about, the profiling and things of that nature, well, I mean, but that happens with any criminal, though. At some point, they get lazy, they get sloppy, and they have an intrinsic need to be caught.
I'm
So
talking about people in general at this point.
they get tired. Anyway, fun fact.
Two directions.
In the gay community, Ronald had a nickname. Ronald Dominique had a nickname. And he was known as, quote, Miss Moped, unquote.
Why?
Let me tell you. That's because when he was visiting these bars downtown, the gay bars where he would go and do drag as Patti LaBelle, he had a moped. He would drive around on this freaking moped. A moped. He would take the moped to the bars, go sing Patti LaBelle. But this is the other thing, too.
I failed to see the humor in this. I drove a moped to a bar.
Yes, but you were not a chubby white dude dressed as a white or a black female.
No, I was not.
Okay, so also
no, I was not.
This is the other fun fact here too. He was not an alcoholic. He barely drank ever. He never did any kind of drugs. He was never known to do any kind of drugs. And from what we can see in his past, there was no overwhelming signs of either physical, emotional, or any kind of traumatic occurrence. But you heard me in this episode talk about the fact that what is it about October? Well, ding, 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 ding. That was when he was in jail. The only time he was in jail. The only time that he had to be put in the hospital after he was raped repeatedly and horribly enough to be put in the hospital.
Which very well could have just been once, not even.
Right, it could have been. Yeah.
I don't want to mitigate or.
No, absolutely not. But at the same time, I guess because he thought that at that point in his life that, you know, he had tried everything the way that he had so far and it had gotten him nowhere. So when he came out
somewhere, he just didn't like it.
When he came out of jail, he still wanted to get his dick wet, I suppose, and all of his murders stemmed from the sexually based motivation, right? But I mean, because that's what he told them in his confessions as well, was that all of it was because he wanted to have sex with these men, but he didn't want to get in trouble for it, so that's why he killed them, because he wasn't going back to prison. But I think over time, and I think it's said in one of these episodes that, you know, they assume it was more to it than that. It was the control. It was the ability to make his presence known in some way, and that was the control that he got to exert over these men in one way or another. And that actually kind of rings true, especially if you look at the fact that the ones that were the crimes that were committed so close in proximity to the other in time that the one specifically was when the guy overdosed and he wasn't able to resist. He wasn't able to put up a fight. He wasn't able to exert his control in the way that he normally had been with his other victims, and that created less of a thrill, less of a release. It didn't check the boxes that he had set out to, with the intent of committing these crimes. That was why he was doing it, and because he didn't get that, he had to turn around and commit another one real close.
Shitty fucking boxes.
So, I mean, it's a terrible, terrible freaking story. And again, I had no freaking clue when I started this mess that Louisiana had so many dang serial killers. But I can tell you for sure that we've got, I'm going to do the one more. That'll be not this coming week, but the week after. We're about to go to North Carolina today, actually tomorrow. Well, until we're past midnight. So we're driving up there to go to a wedding, and then we'll be back next week, and we're super excited about that. But I'm going to try to get that other episode recorded and get that up for y'all once we get back, so we shouldn't have any missteps there. And I don't know, I'm excited to be able to get through this next one, because I refuse to do any more serial killers after this next one, because I've got the other episodes that I've got to tell you guys about, because it's killing me to not to. I was talking to someone just the other day about the fact that I started this podcast specifically to be able to tell these stories that get under my skin, that keep me up at night, that keep me scrolling, that keep me digging for something else, for more information. I need to know why, or what happened, what were they thinking, why would they do that? And a lot of times the answers are not fulfilling, but at least in the very least, I get to share them and get them out of my brain, and I don't have to try to, force them on the people in my life that just roll their eyes at me because I'm telling them another story about stuff that they have no idea why I'm interested or why I care. So I appreciate you guys being here for me. I appreciate you guys coming back. I appreciate you sharing if you do. If you don't, that's fine too. Just keep coming back. That's fine. I'm good with that. We've got a couple cool things that have popped up here recently. I just want to touch on real quick. Our host for our podcast, RSS feed, actually has a new really cool feature that if you, at the very top of our show notes, it says something about screaming at me during the episode. Basically, that's just a link that will allow you to text us immediately. It's just a quick, and it goes straight to my phone. And you type in whatever message, however long, and you can sign it, you can not sign it. It comes from a randomized number from the host site itself, but you can literally just immediately text me and we can text back and forth if you had something interesting you wanted to say about the case, or if you have any kind of suggestion or anything, you can also submit it that way. We've got our website, we've got our TikTok, we've got our YouTube, which I think may or may not be on a slight hiatus because I didn't renew my ID. I'm not sure what the hell that is, but I'll fix that. Make sure that gets put back up. We got our Patreon that I release all of these unedited, unfiltered versions that usually end up being about double the amount of time that I end up putting out in a normal episode. So if you want any piece of that, I release photos and things like that days early, and generally I have the episodes available at least 24 hours early for our Patreon members out there too. So, I did want to say real quick that we have officially hit all major continents. I don't believe Antarctica is a thing, but all of the major continents, north, south, Asia, Europe, all of the whole world, Australia, everybody. We have hit every continent, and I just wanted to say thank you guys. I appreciate you. We love you, and we will see you guys soon. If you have any questions or anything like that, check out the show notes down there. If you go to the website, CenLawPodcast.com, I'll have an entire post on there that'll have the pictures showing you with him with his cane and looking all crazy, and then all of the pictures of the victims, which I always try to put at the very foremost first thing you see whenever you do check out the website for the episode. So you guys have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful week. We're going to go and hopefully enjoy ourselves, and I plan to try not to think about too much more of anything. I actually have a book that I've really been dying to read, and I think that's what I'm going to try to get done in the couple of days that we're not going to be driving. So I will respond if you send me emails, text, whatever it is. But otherwise, you guys have a wonderful rest of your month, which is we're at the end of May now, right? Yeah. So have a wonderful May. I will see you guys back again in June. And hopefully in June, we'll be able to cover some real-time cases, unless they decide to plea out before then. But I will keep you guys posted. It should be a very interesting summer for sure. Thank you guys so much. Love you. See you later. Peace out, Girl Scout. Uncle Sawyer would say deuces. Take care out there.
This has been an Elf Audio production.